All right, hi everybody. Nephew SIG Automation Meeting for May 10th. Okay, well, I think, let me share the agenda. There actually weren't that many things. I just added today, just a discussion. Let's see. I'll just share this window. Okay. Sorry, wrong one. So agenda items today. I wanted to raise it here. We talked about it yesterday in the sub-project meeting, but on Monday, Bala raised the idea of needing another sprint. So that's going to come up tomorrow in the TSC meeting. Just wanted to make sure everyone was aware. What that would mean is that we have this sprint to do that we're in right now, that we just started yesterday, would be to finish get to code completion. And then we'd have one more sprint for additional integration testing, documentation, collateral, things like that. And then we have another week or so buffer. And then we would go to the TSC. I think it was, I don't remember the dates offhand, but I think in it would be, I guess, a month from tomorrow would be the TSC meeting where we go for approval for release. So that would put it, around, I think, May 8th, if I remember right, or June 8th, somewhere around there, with the intent of, assuming we get approval there. No, Stephen, we're talking about doing an extra sprint. So that's the proposal anyway to the TSC tomorrow. Any thoughts on that? Any concerns about that?
I think it's needed.
Do you think it's sufficient? That's the other question.
I think we have to ask the subgroups, I think, right? Probably. I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I look at the status, right? So, okay, let's say that we have all the code together. The thing is that there is still a lot of work to put it all together, I have the feeling.
Yeah.
Now, it all depends on how easy it is to sort it out and who does. So that's why the game plan after the code is there is going to be important in my view, to make as much as possible parallel activity and get to that. But that's a little bit how I look at it. So that's going to be the thing, because there will be things that we haven't thought of probably that we need to sort out at some point.
Yeah. Vish.
I think Tal was going to go. I'll wait for him to finish. Tal, you? Okay.
Yeah, I agree. That's basically that. We are for the, for operators, we're almost there, but it's really, really kind of last minute. We have the AMF coming this week. The SMF is still not finalized. So I really have a feeling that things will kind of come together in the last week of May, which will be really stressful to get together just with all the time zones and everything and make sure that everything works. So yeah, it's realistic. I can tell you that we've been hinted from the TSC that it is possible. So I don't think there will be pushback. The end of May date was never set in stone. It was always kind of a guideline. So I think it's okay for it to spill over. The real issues I have are personal. I think a few of us are planning summer vacations. And I can tell you that for myself, I planned it with the idea that we would finish on June 1st. So, but, we'll manage. I think one more sprint, I am confident that we can do it. Confident.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I think on the package management side, we're, I mean, the piece I'm not, Stephen and I were talking yesterday on the topology controller, and so depending on shape that's in at the end of this week, which he hopes to have some substantial progress there. That's probably the piece that right now that's the biggest open question on that side. The other pieces on the upstream pieces are actually just waiting to merge. Obviously, one of them merged this morning, and the package, the creation of the different packages is there. The installer piece is moving along. I think with that additional sprint, we should be able to get that done. And the UI pieces are moving along as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about that with an extra sprint. I definitely want to see, what we don't have yet, what I haven't seen yet that makes me anxious is that we haven't seen, I haven't seen like a full build pipeline end up with the sandbox working, with all of the latest code, right? So I think that's what I'm, a little nervous that we still haven't reached that integration point. We had hoped to reach it last week, I thought. So, or by the end of this sprint, so yesterday. The sooner we can get there, I think the more we make sure the risk is reduced.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tal already brought up the point I was going to say, the summer vacation thing. And because, we know, right, when we said May 30th, it was Memorial Day weekend, and we were probably positive that we can get there. And also, when you say that we are looking for 1 week, you might want to bring up two things. One is it's the vacation, and that we didn't account for the vacation dates, and maybe leave it open in the way that we are thinking at this point of time that we want 1 week, but we probably need 1.5 sprints, maybe.
Yeah, well, we didn't ask for one. We were going to ask for 1 sprint, but we could just say
at least, and say that I will come back to you if we need more than that. But we want to make sure that we don't introduce any new scope.
Right.
If I was sitting in a TSC, I'd be like, what scope did you introduce, or
well, I think Steven said this really well in a discussion we had. Like, right? It's we're a new project, a new open source project with a lot of people with different demands on their time, and we predicting this is always very, very tricky, even in a company where you can like tell people what to do. Like here we're like we're coming
that's
together.
true. I mean, that used to be the thing. Throwing bodies at it is not going to work. I mean, you must have heard about this in the Fiority company. Just throwing. Exactly. Yeah, so they also need to have
done pretty well, honestly. If we only slip 1 sprint, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Recommendation is to ask for a sprint push, June 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we target June 15th for them.
Yeah.
And I'm on vacation the week of June 20th, so or June 19th. So I would love to get it done before then, but that should be not that should dictate anything, but just for my own personal, as Tal was saying, personal reasons.
So I think we should be able to do it, John, with 1 more sprint. I think this sprint, if we start integration testing next week, next sprint, we should be able to complete it and then write the docs.
Okay, awesome.
Maybe it would be good to see availability. Maybe should we try to see who is available when, or start to look at it, because just to see whether we are depending on certain people that we really need. Just to see that we have, if there is people going on holiday, let's say there is holidays even in May in Europe, it would be good to know, right?
Right.
Just so, I don't know whether it makes sense, but if there's maybe if people want to share that would be great. But because sometimes you're relying on certain people and then you cannot make progress and stuff like that, then you're stuck, right? But I think we have, to a certain extent, I think we have enough diversity we should have enough diversity by now in all the projects to be able to deal with that. But
the key is Wim going on vacation. It seems like Wim is everywhere. If Wim is there.
Wim's not allowed to go on vacation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
going back to this, John, sorry if you don't mind. I could not add 2 things to agenda. Sorry, we can just talk it out. One is I wanted Rado to be here, and then he's kind of creating Docker images, pushing it to Docker Hub. He's done it for the free 5GC repo. I just wanted to make sure that we are all, we need for the other two as well, other two subgroups as well. I just wanted to make sure for the functions and other specializers and other and other NF topology, everything too. So we want to do it in a right way, uniform way. So Rado is here. Probably he can give us what he has done. Probably we can see how what we need to do in the rest of the groups. Obviously, we know that that's needed for integration. That's one thing I wanted to talk. Second thing is there are certain work items that we need to discuss and about their scope, especially the day 2 scenarios. The SMF,
sorry, Bill. Let me just capture this because I realized I'm sitting here listening, and then I'm like, oh, you wanted to do, you wanted to discuss, build.
Build pipeline, build pipeline for all the groups,
Plus also, can we push the images by ourselves or not?
Yeah, we can discuss that. The other one is the day 2, day 3 scenario. We have stories about SMF and UPF upgrades, not upgrades, the scale out scenarios. So I brought it up in yesterday's workload meeting, and the general consensus was that may be at risk, or that may be nice to have. So those two things I want to discuss in this meeting.
Okay, great point. If you don't mind, maybe we take the last. Well, in my opinion, the last one's not controversial. We're going to deliver what we can, and that's probably not something we can deliver. Like other than what can be done just because we're updating Kubernetes resources. Like I don't, which is just part of the machinery that we have. Like you could upgrade a package, you could do that. We'll be able to show that, but we probably won't have any special handling in the operators. I wouldn't expect that in this. I don't know that we committed to that, honestly. My expectation for those stories was just you can update a package version.
Yeah, and we are going to restart the SMF and UPF if you get a new thing. I think that was the story, right? For use case 1 and 2 and 3. So you get a new information and just you kill yourself and you come up again. I thought that was what we were going to do. For use case 2 and 3. You're talking about, right, Bala?
Yes. So Tal was thinking, yes, the restart is one scenario, but just doing itself, Tal had some reservation. Tal, you want to mention?
No, I mean, we can absolutely do it. It's since the way where all the operator really does is create a deployment, which, as you know, in turn creates a replica set, which in turn creates the pods. So restarting pods is a rather simple issue with deployments. You can, I think, bump the ID, or I forget exactly what the way to do that. That is not production ready code. That is not a best practice. That is not something we usually will want to do, but it'll work. There are actually other external solutions. There's a operator called restarter, which so the issue here, I wish that Kubernetes had a feature where if you update a config map and a pod is mounting that config map, then it would restart, but that doesn't happen. When pods are created, they copy the config map and that's it. They don't know about changes to the config map. However, there's an external operator that does that. So in an interesting way, that could be kind of a solution to many of these things. I know, but I think for R1, if we just trigger a restart when the configuration changes, that'll work. But moving forward, we should put a big to-do on that to fix, because that's absolutely not a good practice for a network function.
I agree, but I think that's what we do because we also have limitations with what free 5GC can do, apparently, right? That's why my understanding was that we were settling on that because of the limitation of free 5GC, and at least we have something to show. But I agree with you, it's not
Sure. Absolutely, it's what we'll show, but I don't think it's a limitation of free 5GC, because you could add, for example, load balancers for some of the protocols and find a way to turn off one, start the other while maintaining connectivity. I mean, this is the kind of use cases we want to address in the future. Free 5GC, that's out of the scope of that project, but you can definitely add components that will add the resilience to it. But anyway,
Yeah.
we're jumping ahead where none of this is possible in R1.
Yeah, that's fair. So do I capture here what we're going to say? We can
Yes,
update the package, but it's not going to be, there'll be interruption of service. That's expected.
Yeah.
I wanted to just raise one point just to bring it up, and maybe it can get captured either in the notes or something. But you mentioned like we don't restart the pod. Kubernetes doesn't restart the pod if the config map changes, and that's true. In other projects, I watch my config and I reload it internally and handle the not disruption of service internally at application level as opposed to at the infrastructure level, Kubernetes level. But the other issue you have with the way it's done today that we probably should fix in our operators, this should maybe become a best practice in our operators. When a config map comes in, you want to be able to, when you apply a new change to a deployment, you want to be able to roll back if there's a failure. And if you keep the same config map name and you mount just that name, then a change to the config map, like if you just change the config map, if your pods crash and restart and the config map is invalid, then you get the new one and you're broken. So a best practice that's used in other areas in Kubernetes is to actually create a new config map for every deployment with a hash and mount that instead. So that might be something we look at. And unfortunately, that's not also one of those things like you're talking about that's not built into Kubernetes that should have been, but we've never been able to like make it happen. So we can talk about it later if you want more details, but something we probably should just take a note of for our operators and our best practice.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, operator SDK, I think, is going to be one of the themes for R2.
Yeah.
And all the attention that we put on the kept SDK in R1, I think should go to R2 with having a lot of utilities to make a lot of this work just repetitive work.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like we're in agreement here. Then let's go to Vala's other issue, build pipelines.
Yeah. So Rado, can you please discuss where we are on that one, and probably at that point of time, I would request the groups how we want to do it in other for the rest of the groups. Yeah, go ahead, please. Rado.
Hi everyone. Yeah, absolutely. The thing with Docker images, for now we have a pipeline to produce and upload images for free 5GC repo. So there's gonna be one job that builds the image every commit. We'll see how it goes. If what will be the load generated by it, but for now, looks like it's not a problem. And the second one is going to be like a release build pipeline. So wherever you create the release, create the tag, it will produce and upload the image. The first one will be tagged with build ID from Pro, so you can easily backtrack to the build job to see the logs and whatever. And the second one, so in case of release, the tag for image will be just a release tag. So for now, it's done for the free 5GC, mainly because it was the only repo that contained a Docker file, because that's basically the thing that we need to produce this image at this point. There's kind of like a idea or point to take in the future from Tal to use Builder to create these images, which doesn't rely on solely on Docker file to create those. But that's just a thing, I guess, to take care after R1. So for now, I think the Docker file is pretty familiar format, although bit old. But I guess that's the good point to start with producing those images. So I'm happy to help with creating those. I just need to know what goes where, or maybe if there are like examples from what was built for one summit demo or something, I can base it on that and work with somebody to create those if that will help. And on a side note, I've just created a PR to add this KPT Backstage plugins repo, and there's also Docker file there. So John, you want to me to enable also building images for this repository and uploading them?
Yes, that would be awesome. Yes.
All right. All right. Cool. I will add it to this NPR. Another thing, we have our Docker Hub account. It has been converted to organization, so we're on the, let's say, full throttle. We don't have any throttling there, so we can just go full ahead with our Docker images.
Awesome.
There, and yeah, that's basically what I've got.
Yeah.
Okay. Wim?
By the way, yeah, so I just wanted to say that we also have a bunch of Docker files already in the repo Nephew.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. I'll add it then.
Because we have one per function, and then we have one for the I already created one for the operator, for the controller. But it probably will be updated, but we can start doing that also in the Nephew repo.
Awesome. I will add them shortly. Cool. And to answer your question you were asking before about uploading those manually, I guess before R1 it's okay. So for the certain tasks, I guess that's okay. Ultimately, I would like to have all of this as a proud jobs, to have some kind of accountability, what was created when and from what, but to streamline the whole thing. So we're good to go for R1. I guess we can make something up to ease up this process. If for example what we will have in Pro, it will be not enough.
Yeah, so the reason is the following: we have our own test bed at the moment, right? Which we are used to already do some, let's call it, pre-integration testing. So at the moment, I'm using my own, let's say, a registry for it, but I wanted to move it towards the Docker.io, so we can build a CAP pipeline and test things ourselves. So if we could, maybe we can agree on a tag that we use, right? So that because we override typically always, because we always test with the latest most likely for us. So if we can have a tag that we say, okay, that's the tag that you can use. I don't know, maybe there's a better proposal for it, but that we say, okay, because I believe that we just override whatever we have because we want to get to the functionality we need at the moment, just to get our ROM working. But it would be great if we could push the images ourselves. If we are testing, let's say we find a bug, that we don't have to wait for the check-in to happen before we can test it, that we can test with the change that we do, we are able to test the new content, and then we can put it into our, let's call it, pre-integration test, and then so it's beneficial for as a developer if we could do that.
All right, yeah, we can work something out. You're in charge of this effort, this testing infrastructure that you've got, or who am I?
Yeah, so I have at the moment I built my own environment for the time being. And then ISTI is also, but yeah, so but it's around the same concept. What we just need is the functions. So for ISTI, it doesn't even need the full Docker environment, because that's just that we will put that we don't need the images for that. But for the, let's call it, the other environment we have, we would need the real images, and that would be really beneficial.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
we can take this offline. We'll discuss the details. All right. Cool. Yeah, that's basically what I've got. Yeah, thanks.
Cool, thanks, Rado. I wanted to make sure that one is what Wim said. So basically in Nephew repo, for all the functions, we need to push images. We have a few functions, and then we have a specializers. Then we need to push that. And then the other things, I just wanted to make sure that we cover the NF deployment controller. I think that maybe that that may be part of the controller manager. Is that right?
So Bala, at the end of the day, we will have
Yeah.
a controller manager, right? So we have
Yeah.
the function and the controller manager where it's all aggregated together, basically. At
Yes.
the moment, I also built for each of the special, so I had, because the controller manager was not there, I created my own operator to have to run all the specializer in it, but we have to probably remove that potentially. So the controller manager is the one that will aggregate all the controller that we run for the management cluster.
Yes. So essentially, yeah, then that is controller manager is also in the Nephio repo. So yeah, I think we got everything in the Nephio repo. I just want to make sure that we cover all the cases that we need in terms of the pipeline, so that we can we have everything, like by mid this sprint in terms of the process, and then we can start thinking about doing that end-to-end testing. Thanks, Tyler. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, really awesome. Yeah, thanks. So anybody else have a question on this topic with Rado?
So if there are, Rado, if there's a Docker file, will it automatically build and push that, or do we need to enable it specifically? Should we create issues for ones that we specifically need? What should the process be here to work with you on that?
I mean, yeah, for I guess for the future, we can implement like kind of create the issue against the infra repo or something. But for now, just drop me a list of repositories and the Docker files and the preferable naming of the image, and I will just add it to the config, and later on, once this all gets kind of streamlined, we can go to like a full process with issues and stuff. But
yeah, whatever's easiest is fine with me. I just wanted to know how to do it.
By the way, I just want to let you, there is one issue created for the build pipeline already. It's in the sprint. If we can even make use of that or create add comments on that if you need to.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe are there any other topics, or shall we get half an hour of our lives back? Get some work done.
Get work done. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Excited. We're making progress, and let's make it happen. We got this. Thank you.
So actually, John, I remember one more thing.
Sure.
Yesterday, you were mentioning about something about NF topology. I don't completely understand API versus something was pushed.
Oh, yes. I knew there was something that came up.
Yes.
So this was a question we just wanted to raise with the larger group. So Stephen's API for the NF topology is right now in the PR in the Nephio API directory. So when I think about the NF topology, it's sort of a top level surface. And what I wasn't sure about, I think I've come to my own opinion on it, but what I raised and I wasn't sure about was like the other things right now in that repository are actually like API, I believe, are Kubernetes resources that are used within packages to express requirements and things like that. Whereas this is like an API on top that's used to control and build out a topology. And so it's sort of a northbound interface, I guess, in a sense, whereas the other ones are sort of things that go in a package to express southbound to the rest of the world, what it's kind of not really southbound, but sort of to express requirements and resolve to our internal APIs. So I wanted to ask the question anyway, like, we're creating a northbound API surface with that NF topology, which I think is fine. And so like I've sort of come to the conclusion that it's fine and it belongs there and it's okay. But I did want to raise like, is there a distinction between those two types of APIs? Do they both belong in the API repository? Like one is sort of for the consumption of our operators. So you'd be like including the API repository as a package, whereas the other one is sort of for a human user potentially to use. I guess it doesn't really matter. It would be consumed by a UI component then. It would be, but I just wanted to raise the question if other people had opinions. Yeah, Tal.
Yeah, so I can see the concern, but I think the API repository is all our APIs. So in our APIs are KRM. So I think that's the reason we call it API, right? So whether or not they're northbound or southbound or meant to interface with other things, I think it's a place where we accumulated all our KRM types and all the basic code to work with those types. So there will be a lot of ways to interface with Nefio, right? If it's low-level plugins, if it's operators, if it's northbound interfaces with orchestrators, which would have, at least right now, 2 different ways to interface with Nefio. I mean, they could use topology controller. They could work with lower-level primitives. So I think the way Nefio has been so far is we don't have this, here is an API, a single API to interface with Nefio, because there are many things that interface with Nefio. There are users, right? There would be a user API, whatever that user really is and what their role is, and there will be different subsystems that would connect to Nefio. So I think maybe if we want to make a change here, we can change the library name, the repository name from just generic API to say KRM, like KRM types or something like that, because potentially we could have other APIs in the future, gRPC or other things, REST or whatever interfaces we want to create to other systems. So maybe that's the issue. But I think the repository as it stands, I think makes sense to me. Maybe the name should change.
Okay, well, we'll take it up after R1. How's that?
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, there is, I did do a little POC to see how Tosca could fit in here, right? To see if Tosca versus the topology controller, how they could work. And it worked pretty well for me. I was able to create a basic Tosca profile and translate it into our topology controller primitive. So, you know, potentially we would also have publish a Tosca profile in the future, right, to interact with. So where all these things would sit, I wonder if we really need to call this API versus just call it KRM types and have these different kinds of languages fit elsewhere. But anyway, as you said, it's really an issue for R2 probably, and our repository naming organization. We already have an issue open for that, and we haven't really finalized it. I actually would really like us to rename some of our repositories before releasing R1, but we'll see how much appetite everybody has to make that kind of change.
Yeah, for me, my view on it, John, is also not to put too much structure in it, because I think the nice thing with Nefio is we can use it in various ways, right? And it gives us the flexibility. So for me, because you see it a little bit with the packages as well, right? You try to put a structure, but then you have another use case. You see, there's always, depending on how you use it, you come with a different thing. So my personal opinion is like, I wouldn't put too much, let's say, structure in it, but there should be, okay, we should group them in what they are about, not so much on the hierarchy or something like that. So that's my personal view, because yeah, and also talking from experience, because I have tried to do something like that, and it always one day it works, and then after half a year you change your opinion, and then I said, okay, it's better to put a structure, let's say a flat thing, and use it however it will be consumed. And yeah, my personal view.
Okay, so it sounds like what I wrote in the thing here, like it sounds like more or less we're saying, let's just, yes, it's fine, it's good for now, let's hold off on any changes, but maybe we'll rearrange some things to some extent. And we'll figure it out later, basically. We see some distinction, but we'll figure it out later. And I can live with that.
Same thing with the packages like we discussed, right? I mean, where some of the packages that Gitia and other things are going, I think the same conclusion we have. Let's park it here for now, and then we can take it later.
Sounds good to me. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Bala. I knew I couldn't remember what I had wanted to talk about. So thank you. Anything else, or should we wrap up? Okay. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.